Hey folks, this is Ryan again from ORS Cross Country Skis Direct, and this is the Garmont Excursion backcountry / telly boot. We've been carrying this boot for many years. We're big fans of it. It's a great boot. Plastic, obviously, you can see that. And I say backcountry / telly because it can certainly work as a light telemark boot. But these days, telly boots are a lot taller. They've got 3, 4, 5 even buckles. Here we've got a shorter 2-buckle, sort of lighter weight version of a telly boot, and it's sort of lighter weight, so it's more comfortable when you're touring in the backcountry. When you're telly, you're riding lifts, all you're doing is going downhill. You don't really need a super light boot. But when you're kicking and gliding, you're doing a lot of climbing on your own out in the backcountry, it's really nice to have a lightweight boot. And it's a super powerful boot. It'll turn any of the skis that we offer, and it's super comfortable, waterproof, warm. It's a really great boot. The Garmont Excursion. Now, which skis is the Garmont Excursion most happy on? The Rosinal BC 125, which is a brand new backcountry ski from Rossi, is a match made in heaven right there. The Mazus Anum, which used to be the Karhu Guide, it's the same exact ski with a different name and graphic. Great setup right there. These are our widest backcountry skis. They are essentially telly skis. They flex like a telly ski. They're wide. They have a lot of side cut, full metal edge, but they have a kick pattern. So you're touring. You're getting around on your own power, and you need those scales to propel you forward. When you get to the top, you're basically turning these just like any other telly ski. So you want a wide ski with side cut for turning and floating in deep powder. Wide skis require a beefy boot. I had a guy call me up the other day. He's doing avalanche duty out in Alaska, and he was considering a very light duty setup. I said, man, you've got to get this. You want to be ripping down avalanche slides, you got to make sure you've got the most power, and that's exactly what this was for. You could consider this boot on the sort of the mid-width backcountry skis, the Mazus Epic, which used to be the Karhu 10th Mountain Tour, the Alpina Cross Terrain, and even the Mazus Eon. Here you're thinking, okay, I've got narrower skis for better glide, but I still want a boot that will just make effortless turns. Again, the beefier the boot, the easier it is to make turns in deep snow. So there's no reason why you couldn't stick this boot on these. You're getting a warm boot, a waterproof boot, a boot with tons of control downhill. But if you're stuck on a long flat tour for, miles and miles, ideally you would want a lighter weight boot. But you're thinking, yeah, but I can deal with that because I want the most control possible when I'm going downhill. I wouldn't put it on the sort of narrower backcountry skis, however, because at this point you're really kind of overkill. You don't need this much power to turn the narrower skis. So from basically the Mazus Eon, which is kind of maybe not, and then onward. Now, as far as bindings, this can work with any sort of 3-pin backcountry binding, starting with the HD from Volet. So let's put them all right here and take a quick look. And here you got just your basic 3-pin backcountry binding. No big deal. You step in, and this thing has so much power that without a cable, no problem whatsoever turning the Eon. Or even the Epic or any of the mid-width skis. You could certainly use the that binding on the Mazus Anum or the Rossi BC 125 with the Excursion boot and be just fine. But if you want maximum downhill control, then you're going to want the extra support you get with a cable. And the cable wraps around the heel of the boot and just stiffens everything up. It helps to keep the heel closer to the ski, and it just adds to the lateral stiffness so you get more power to drive the ski when you're cranking down steeps and deeps. And quickly, we've got the Volet 3-pin cable, which is essentially the HD binding that I showed you earlier, only with a cable. And this is an expansion spring type of cable. The cable is easily removable, which is really nice. So you can certainly kick and glide without the cable. Then you get to the top of that nice downhill. You slap the cable on real quick. You latch it around the boot, and that gives you that extra power you need for optimum turning control. Moving on to the hardwire 3-pin. Very similar, except instead of an expansion spring, you've got these steel rods and then a compression spring cartridge type deal. So it's a more of an enclosed system. It won't ice up as much, I suppose. and the rods give you even more power. However, not as free feeling when you're kicking and gliding. If you are kicking and gliding with the cable on, you'll notice certainly that these wires kind of keep you a little stiffer and you're working a little bit harder, but more control on the downhill. And then the Volley switchback is a full-on tele binding. There are no pins, so you got to keep the cables on. Hard wire, compression spring. What this thing has mainly is the tour mode. You can switch this little lever, and then the toe is free to pivot. So when you are skinning straight up a mountain, you can put it in the tour mode, and you're really getting an effortless, very efficient stroke every time you kick and glide up the hill. Then when you get to the top, you lock it down, and it locks the toe piece down. Obviously the cables are still gonna, move. This is still a free heel tele binding. This isn't an alpine binding. You're never gonna have your heel locked down, but it locks the toe down, and then you can drive the ski. So this is really the kind of binding that you'd use maybe with, the BC 125 or the Anum, and really all you're thinking is downhill. You got to get up somehow. You got to skin up, but when you get there, you want power on the down. So that's what the switchback is for. Anyway, we weren't talking about the switchback at the beginning. We were talking about the Garmont Excursion, and there it is one more time. Really, really wonderful boot. Metal buckles. Thing is killer. We love it. Garmont Excursion. Thanks for watching. Hope that helped. My name's Ryan from ORS Cross Country Skis Direct.